Because of the way the universe is created, we each of us live in two worlds at the same time. We have to live in the outer life of our own bodies and the inner life of our own souls.
Hello and welcome to Living the Inner Life. I'm your host, Chris Sheridan, and I want you to join with me on a journey into our inner lives, our thoughts, feelings, beliefs, everything that helps shape the way we respond to and interact with the outside world. And if we can utilize our tools of consciousness, we can live a better life, inner, outer, and in our total experience. Well, one thing we hear about nowadays is facts versus feelings. People say you are entitled to your own feelings, but not your own facts. Okay, somehow that facts don't care about your feelings. We hear that a lot. And in some way that may be true, but I want to take the position for the purpose of this discussion, and that is that feelings are more important than facts. So this is feeling over fact, feelings over facts. Now, some things are true, okay? And in science, which is one of the great ways of looking at the world, there are three main branches of inquiry and understanding, and that's science, religion, and philosophy. Those are the big three if you want to look at them that way. Science is great because one of the hallmarks is that it is empirical and that it is replicable, that whatever is observed and tested and recorded would be the same at a different lab, with a different scientist, at a different part of the world, at a different time, as long as they're conducting this experiment in the same way or observing or measuring something using the same tools and instrumentation, that you would come up with the same results. Whether it was on a Tuesday, whether you were having a bad day, whether it was raining, as long as that didn't affect the experiment, that no matter what, any other thing, no matter what you're feeling or thinking, this is going to happen. So say like boiling water. Okay, with the Fahrenheit scale, it's 212 degrees at sea level. So that's 100 degrees centigrade. If you have water, and it's relatively the same water, that it doesn't have a vastly different mineral or whatever content in it, and even if you use some other heating device, if it's gas or electric or whatever, as long as you're at sea level, you're going to get the same result. Here on Earth, boiling water will be 100 degrees centigrade or 212 degrees Fahrenheit, no matter what your feelings are about it. Okay, you may not like it. You may disagree. You want it to be 213 degrees or 99 centigrade. Not going to happen. That is a scientific fact. You can argue with it, I guess, all you want. But as far as we know, with the instruments and equipment that we have, our powers of observation, that is a fact. It is a fact of nature. It is a scientific fact. And until we understand more about it, it's going to stay. Now, there are other scientific facts, like if man were to be able to fly, he would have been given wings. And that went on for centuries, perhaps thousands of years, until we somehow figured out how to have an airplane carry us, a heavier than air craft, carry us up in the air, and it didn't violate the rules of physics or nature. It was just that we understood them better, and through the Wright brothers and a lot of other inventors and great thinkers of the time, experimenters, that we were able to understand airflow, buoyancy, lift, all these forces that are just as real as boiling water. We understood them more, and the technology and the tools that we had to work with, and plus years and standing on the shoulders of giants who came before, were able to come up with this notion of an airplane, and it seemed to work, and it did work, and it keeps working today. We use it every day and take advantage of it or take it for granted. I guess we can do that, whereas 150 years ago, it would have been an absurd thought to think that you could just get in some tube and fly away somewhere at hundreds of miles an hour. You would be crazy. Or you would be non-scientific. Well, that's not possible. Okay, it wasn't that long ago when scientifically it was believed to be not true that we could fly, could make an airplane and fly. So even facts like that, even scientific facts can change, not by changing the rules of nature or physics, but by understanding them better, understanding more about them, and by understanding more about how they work, things that maybe would have seemed a miracle years ago are just the new science of today. So even scientific facts change over time. Okay, they get built one upon each other. There are other times where, like the ability of man to fly, gets changed because it's outdated. It becomes disproven. Okay, that this is not the case. Now we have a new way of looking at the world, and that can be disturbing. One thing about facts, whether it's history or scientific fact, is that if it is the prevailing wind, if that is the current way of believing and looking at something, that it can be hard to change. You know, it's been said that more scientific advancements are made at funerals than in the laboratory. And what that's getting at is that not only may a scientific theory be so attached and held onto so strongly, it's the person, the scientist, who maybe came up with the theory, their reputation, or the veneration that a current scientist has for a professor or somebody, Newton, or somebody that came, Einstein, who came before. And now you're going to come up with some theory, or there's some observation or experiment that disproves them, or somebody else is going to disprove your favorite scientist from long ago or from grad school. You might dig your heels in and go, no, this can't be. Maybe you've based your entire career on a certain scientific principle, and they're going to die hard, okay? Because it gets ingrained, it gets habituated, and just like a personal habit or thought, it gets hard to change. But we do change. There are breakthroughs in science. There are new facts, which again is just a greater, more deeper understanding of what the facts are and what the science is and the physics behind some of these things. Okay? Same is true with history. It's been said that history is written by the victors. That is, if there's a conflict or a war or a conquest or somebody taking over somebody else's country, that the mythology behind it, the stories that we tell, the history, his story, is written by the people who have the power, who took the power from somebody else, and it may or may not be actually true. Okay, it gets written in the history book, and like a scientific theory, if it's been going on for a long enough period of time, it gets ingrained, it gets habituated. It seems to be this is the way things are. It becomes undisputable, and when it does get challenged, it can be met with a very hostile reaction. Okay, but we know that about history. Things in history, history books have been rewritten, and they will continue to be rewritten over time. Something like the existence of the city of Troy was thought to be from Homer's epic, from the Iliad and the Odyssey, that it is Greek mythology, and, actually going further back, and that it's just something in this is just some story that, some culture decided to come up with. Wow, it's a great drama, but, it's certainly not true. Well, it is true. They did find, based on Homer's account, there were archaeological expeditions. I think it's somewhere in Turkey. I'm not sure. I should have looked that up. But wherever it is, wherever they found it, they did. And the walls were as described. And it is now accepted that Troy, this city, this fortified city, we know with the Trojan horse and Achilles and all that, at least the building, the structures are true. So something that was once thought mythology is now actual factual history. Okay? But this feeling and facts. So you can hold on to an old fact because of your feelings, or you can reject a fact because of your feelings. But a lot of this variation, I think, that comes into something that should be, or you think might be factual and therefore agreed upon, that it's, objectively true, not subjective, how you feel about it or how you think about it. But that's not really the case. And if we look at eyewitness accounts, say from plane crashes, you may have several people who saw the same thing, heard the same noise, were at relatively a similar vantage point, so their angle of view was the same, may have completely, and they do, have completely different accounts on what it is they thought they saw. Even though they were all looking at the same thing at the same time, their telling of the story can be completely different. In fact, eyewitness accounts a lot of times aren't really admissible, say in a court case, because they're not reliable because of this variation. And to take a look at why that is, even if the thing on the outside, this event, is one event and it's the same thing and it's objectively true that this thing happened, how it gets experienced through the eyes to come in and the ears, your sensory apparatus. So that comes in and immediately it gets processed through past experience, the way you look at things. People can look at the exact same thing and have very, very different ideas on what it is, what it means, what it is they saw. So if that's feelings, or if it's experience, or if it's just the way you perceive the world, we can look at things very differently and have a very different experience with the same thing. Take 4 people and you put them in a car, in a roller coaster car, and not one at the front and one at the back. You could have a different experience of the roller coaster. But if they're in the same relative position, you could have 4 completely different experiences. Even though they all went through the same thing externally, internally, you could have one person who got sick and had a horrible experience and will never go on a roller coaster again. Somebody else who may have been afraid of roller coasters overcame their fear, and now they're invincible. They're going to walk with a spring in their step and face things in life forever changed by that experience. And somebody else, might be bored because the roller coasters are so much cooler at the other park. So same event, very different experience the way it's been experienced. Okay? And this is so true in the way we perceive things emotionally. Okay? And the way to approach, especially if you're working with other people, somebody can come up to you and say, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe this happened. This person betrayed me. This is horrible. I feel awful." And you could be like, "Well, they didn't betray you. They stood you up because they had to, go pick up their kids from school or something." And, reaching for an example right here. It may not be exactly like that. Okay? But somebody is feeling it like that. So meet somebody where they are with their feelings. If somebody is feeling bad or feeling worthless, okay, how about that for an example? I know a lot of people do work with other people, and especially if you're into self-help or transformation or consciousness and self-growth, usually people that are attracted to that kind of thing are also wanting to help other people as well as help themselves. And if you're dealing with somebody, if you're working with another person who comes up to you and says, "My gosh, I just feel worthless. I'm a total loser. I might as well just give it all up." Are you going to come back and say, "Oh, that's not true"? Now, it may not be true. Okay, actually and factually, it may not be true, but the person is experiencing it as a truth, as real. Meet them where they are. Say, oh my gosh, you feel worthless. Well, that's, wow, what a horrible feeling. What's making you feel that way? Can you explain it to me? Don't negate it. Meet them where they are. The feeling is the fact. It really is. It almost doesn't matter what the facts are, because if you're feeling something, this feeling is stronger than the fact. I guess that's what I'm getting at with all this, okay? The feeling can supersede even if you know the facts, okay? Even if your rational brain, your logical thinking part of your consciousness knows something to be true. If you're not feeling it, if it doesn't feel right, or it feels wrong, or it feels like something else, or doesn't feel true, the feelings are going to win. They are actually stronger, okay? So that's why it's feelings over fact. Now, you can get to the fact, but you have to go through the feelings first, okay? Working with other people, meet them where they are. If they are feeling something, they're actually feeling that, okay? Now, how they characterize it, or maybe what the event was, they may have a different perception of it, and it may not actually be 100% true or accurate. But if they're having a feeling about it, that feeling is true, okay? In the moment, at least, it feels that way. You have this feeling of helplessness, or, oh, I can't do anything right. Everybody tell you that, oh gosh, I just feel like I can't do anything right. Well, that's not true, okay? Anybody who says that probably does a lot of things very, very right. Maybe they're not acknowledging it. Maybe they're not remembering that. Most likely, they're probably caught up in the emotion of the one thing that they didn't do right. And then they bring in all these past memories of every other time they did something wrong. And you know what? We all do things not right and right throughout our life. There are hundreds, thousands of examples. If you want to cherry pick all the negative ones, then you're going to wrap your feelings around that, and it's really going to seem like that. And if it seems like that, and this person feels that way, they're going to act that way. They're going to respond to things that way. Okay? And then that can almost become the new fact, regardless of what the actual facts are. So if you can meet somebody on the level of how they are actually feeling, okay, then you can get to maybe what's behind the feelings. And if they can calm down a little bit, maybe then they can see the larger picture on what's going on. But we become conditioned in a lot of ways. Okay, all dogs are like the dog that bit me. If you have a bad experience, that can become so, especially if it's, traumatized, or if it is somehow emotionally energized to a certain degree. Okay, you can respond to things that maybe are nowhere near like that, but they kind of seem like it a little bit. You can make that out to be this whole other thing, this whole scary monster, which it really isn't, but you're conditioned to respond to things that way, like Pavlov's dog, this experiment where, a flash of light was accompanied with an electric shock. And after, of course, the flash of light, the shock, and the dog would freak out. After a while, they stopped the shock, kept the flash of light, but the dog would react as if there were an electric shock. It's conditioning, and we get conditions. That's just what we do. Okay, that's part of our human experience, as part of our necessary apparatus on how we can handle things and deal with things and learn things and grow. But if we get stuck in the condition, we're not able to see the new facts or the new way of looking at something. Okay, so to have the feelings take over can actually work in our favor. Okay, if you are conditioned, say something like with money, some people say, "Oh, the money is the root of all evil." It's really the love of money above all else. is the root of all evil. But you can have conflicting feelings about it. Maybe you can have a very logical need for something, for money. We'll just stick with that. And he said, well, geez, it would totally make sense. If I can earn a little more, I can save a little more, I can pay my bills a little more easily, not have some of this financial stress, be able to do more and share more and help other people. Even it's a fully altruistic notion of having more money. But then this feeling, but I don't want to be greedy. I don't want to be thought of as somebody that's, has money and doesn't work a hard day in their life, or whatever lie or notion. Or you look at the news and then you see some, financial guy on Wall Street or girl, who rips off investors and preys upon vulnerable people, the elderly, selling them insurance policy, whatever. There's all these white-collar crimes, people embezzling and, doing horrible, greedy things with money. If you, on one hand, are very logical and rationally desiring to increase your wealth, and at the same time, you have these very negative feelings, the feelings are going to supersede the fact. Okay, even if it's something you really know you need and want, if you have a bad feeling about it, if you have a negative association, this conditioning, you're going to go with where the emotion is. Okay, the father of American psychotherapy, William James, said that when it comes between the rational and the passional always wins. It's the head and the heart. The heart is more powerful. Okay, and it works in a positive way too. How many stories have you heard about somebody who grows up under horrible conditions, whether it's their environment, their family, their country, the government, a physical challenge, some health thing, and they're able to overcome that because what was stronger was the feeling, the belief. Even if it wasn't seen, there was this faith that was energized with emotion that, no, I think I can, right? The little engine who could. The little engine who couldn't. How could the little engine do that? Remember that story? Little engine carry up a big load uphill. All the other ones, all the big engines couldn't do it, but this little engine thought she could do it because she said, I think I can. Really believed that. This personal belief, this faith, even though the facts did not line up at all. Okay, the laws of physics, nothing was going in this little train engine's favor. But what she had that was more important than the facts was the feeling that I think I can. All right? So use these feelings not to defeat yourself, not to violate the facts that are in front of you, but use it as a way of transcending what seems to be a factual background or environment in which you live, or a situation, and overcome it, transcend it, get through it. Okay? Screw your facts. The feeling will win. All right? If it's strong enough. And that's why sometimes very smart people, very gifted, very adequate people who have resources, a lot of times fail because they don't have this belief, or they have this negative belief, this feeling. Okay? And I know people with trust funds that, it's a double-edged sword, and it ends up actually in some ways working out to be a very horrible mess for them, because their feelings about it aren't all that good. If it was a parent or somebody who passed and left them with a bunch of money, well then, are they going to go out and have fun with that money because somebody died? That's a conflict, okay? But use your feelings. First of all, try to come up with better feelings about things, and most importantly, about yourself and your ability, because it is true that just about any situation, any obstacle can be overcome if the feeling is strong enough. In the face of what might be objective fact, you can have, or subjective, you can have this subjective feeling, this passionate, this passional, like William James said, part of yourself will overcome the rational. It'll transcend obstacle and anything that gets in your way. So use your feelings, no matter what the facts are, no matter what your bank account says, use your feelings to increase if that's what you want to do. If you're depressed, use the feeling of happiness, connect with nature, connect with other people, connect with this better part of yourself. Find a group, whatever it is you can take to get out of what seems like a factual situation. Make the new facts based on the feelings, and if the feeling is strong enough, you will carry it through, carry it out, overcome the facts previous to become new facts, and your feelings will triumph over the facts. And that's about all I have to say about that. So thank you for listening here on Living the Inner Life.